Morning everyone, welcome to White Lightning MASH 101 by Public Land Man Wesley Combs. I'm using a hat cam, so it's going to be easier for me to record and show you guys the steps that I take to making my home brew. So I'm going to put my hat on and I'll start going through the process. Okay, as you can see, I've got my ingredients, my work table and stuff. I got my water right now being heated up. Big thing you need to do is, this is about a 3-gallon pot, stainless steel. I usually put a gallon and a half of water in there. You want to bring the temperature of the water up to around probably about 150, 160. That way you can dissolve your sugar, get it all liquefied before you add it to the actual grains and stuff. So we're 160 plus right now, so we'll start adding the sugar. I'm doing a 5-gallon, it's going to be a 5-gallon mash, but I use 7-gallon bucket that I buy from Uline. You gotta buy like 5 at a time, but they're good, not too bad in price. You can get them for I think right around $9.95 each plus shipping. Anyway, we use a 7-gallon bucket. We're going to do a 5-gallon mash. So I've got the water, 1.5 gallons of water already in there. We got it up to temperature, so now it's time to start adding the sugar. In a 5-gallon mash, I use 16 pounds of sugar. That sounds like a lot of sugar, but you want a lot of sugar, because the sugar and the yeast are going to work together, and that's what's going to produce your alcohol. Just get any kind of 4-pound bag sugars from any of your supermarkets or wherever. Let's say we're going to add 4 bags in there. I think 16 pounds of sugar. And by the time this is all done, it'll ferment for about probably 2 to 3 weeks. That way you get the full potential of your mash and the alcohol form. So I said 16 pounds is what I use. I've seen recipes on YouTube where they're only using like 4 pounds, 5 pounds for a 5-gallon mash, and the numbers just ain't very good. I mean, you're gonna get maybe 130 proof coming out, if that. Most of my recipes, and I run it through my 5-gallon stainless steel, I usually have about 160 first out, and then I can usually hold 150 pretty much all day long, 150 proof. A 5-gallon run, if you start it at 4 o'clock in the morning and it's got good alcohol that you're hoping for, it will run from 4 a.m. in the morning all the way until probably almost 4 a.m. the following morning. So a 5-gallon batch will run quite a while. It's not a fast process if you ever get into making your own White Lightning at home. But anyway, we're going to go, this is my grain, this is what I put into a 5-gallon mash. From the bottom to here, I take shell corn, and you can use just your home blender, is what I use. I grind it down, whole kernel corn, because that way you get the better flavor. Because you get cracked corn, it's already all dry and there's no flavor there. Then from this line up, I have probably about a pound of barley, and I have probably a pound of oat. And those are my 3 secret ingredients to my premium clear that I make. And people love it. My friends, they come over and want to drink with me and stuff, and so I use 3 ingredients. This is probably a 6-pound grain. So roughly, if you're doing straight corn, you're going to want to do probably, I figure about a pound of corn per gallon of water. So this is pretty close to the grain wise. I said it's probably about 6 to 7 pounds of grain, and I'm doing a 5-pound mash. So anyway, this is the bucket that I'm using. It's already rinsed, cleaned out. I'm going to just dump all the ingredients in the bucket. And as the sugar is still dissolving, and I want to make sure that sugar is completely dissolved, and then we will add that into the grains, into the 7-gallon bucket. And then what I'll do is, the water and everything is nice and hot. I'll let that stuff, I'll stir it and let it set for a little while, and just let the heat start to bring the starches out of the grains itself. So you've got 16 pounds of sugar water, and then you've got the grains that are in the bucket already. So it'll be kind of like making oatmeal, but way more water, and you just kind of let it sit for about a half hour before I start to water it down to get the temperature. But while that's still getting the sugar dissolved, there's other ingredients I use. I use the High Spirit Professional Whiskey Yeast. This packet here will do a 6.5 gallon, which would be more than enough for the 5-gallon bucket of mash that we're doing. It can go up to a 12% ABV, which is really good. Like I said, I use this yeast here with all my recipes, and I usually hit the 160 proof first out. So that's one of the things you do after you get the cool down. Then with that, I add a little bit of yeast energizer, probably about a teaspoon or so, or tablespoon, somewhere in there, to help energize the yeast itself. It's always handy to have a electronic thermometer, because you got to get your mash knocked down in temperature to between, it's got to be lower than 95 degrees Fahrenheit before you can add your yeast, or you'll kill the yeast. So like I said, I'll leave that set, the grains in the hot water set for about a half hour to an hour, whatever, and just let the grains, starches come out. And then I'll cool it down with probably about another 3.5 gallons. Like I said, I had 1.5 gallons of water that I dissolved the sugar in. The sugar is going to dissolve down, and you're probably looking at maybe another 3/4 gallon with the sugar dissolved. So then when it's all done and it's in the mash bucket, mixed around, set for a few hours, or half hour to an hour, whatever you decide, then I'll add, like I said, another 2.5 gallons of cold water. I use tap water. I don't use anything special, just plain tap water. That makes really good. It's going to run through a distill process, so if there's anything in that water, it's going to be killed during the process. But anyway, the next one of the other ingredients, if you like a smooth, really smooth liquor, then you're going to want to get you some vegetable glycerin. It's a 99.7% vegetable glycerin. It's a sweetener, and it is a smoother. You use glycerin in your mash. You could use it after your final product's done, but I put it right in with my mash, and when it's a distilled process is done, you have this nice smooth going down, and then you got that big old volcano coming back up. I mean, it's just really good. I've had a lot of people, friends, that just love my smoothness of my lightning that I make. But anyway, we're getting really close. The sugar's pretty much dissolved, so what I'm going to do is I'm gonna find my welding gloves. I'm a welder, so if you can use pot holders or whatever, but you know, this pot's gonna be hot and I gotta transfer it from here and dump it into my bucket, so I will get my welding gloves from off my welder. Okay, so we are ready to get that hot sugar water into the mash green, and then we'll stir it around a little bit, and then we will let it set for a while. I will stop the video and then I will come back when it's time to add the, so I just put the spoon already in there. We'll shut down the heat, and then we'll get ready to take the hot thing over here. I say you just want to kind of dump it fast, so you don't dump it all over, but you dump that hot sugar water right in there. And the more it starts to smell like oatmeal, and smells really good. I said with the 3 ingredients that I use, it is really good flavor clear. You will not be sorry. I mean, I did a lot of trial and error. I've done the straight corn. Straight corn's fine if you want to do like your flavoring, like lemonade, some of the other flavors, peach and whatnot. But for my clear, I've come up with this recipe that I use, and like I said, it's probably 4 pounds of corn ground with a blender, and then I use about a pound or a half to 1 pound of barley, and I use the same half to 1 pound of oats, and I grind them up in my blender too. And so anyway, you can see the steam, so that's hot. The hot water won't hurt these buckets. I use these buckets over and over again, but they work really good. So alright, that's the start of making the mash. I'm going to let this all set and get this stuff cleaned up a little bit, and I will be back in a little bit to finish up the adding of the yeast, the energizer, and the glycerin, and then we'll put our lid with the airlock on, and we'll let it go for a few weeks. As you can see, I've got this bucket here I started about a week ago, and it's still percolating, so hopefully by the next weekend I'll be able to run it. I like to do mashes about a week apart from each other, that way you don't run into trying to run too much at one time. But anyway, that's what I've got so far, and we'll come back and I'll finish up the rest here in a few. So I'll be right back.